This regular board meeting of the Waco Independent School Board is hereby called to order. All items which may be discussed or voted upon this evening have been posted as required by state law. I just really wanted to extend a warm welcome to everyone present and to our television viewers. The board's purpose is to set goals, listen to reports of the superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, and personnel appointments, and to make policy for the district. We are not here to make management decisions or solve problems of individuals. Management is the responsibility of the superintendent and her staff. I would just ask right now if you would turn off your cell phones to silent if you have not already done so. We appreciate the time that you have taken to join us and for your interest in Waco ISD Independent School District. Esta junta regular de los Waco ISD está convocada. Les extiendo un amable bienvenidos a todos los que están presentes y los que nos observan por televisión. También les quiero compartir con todas las conferencias están disponibles en la página de Waco ISD YouTube el lunes después de la conferencia. En esta página puede escoger su idioma, así toda la información que se fue discutida es disponible para todos. Por favor, de apagar su teléfono celular y les agradecemos el tiempo que comparten con nosotros y su interés en Waco ISD. We have a Miss Mary Jane Waits who signed up to speak for public comment. We have one person signed up to speak on one of the open meeting agenda items this evening. The board encourages comments about open meeting agenda items from members of the public. Anyone who has signed up to speak in advance of the meeting in accordance with board procedures will do so in accordance with the law, board policy, and board rules. Board rules require that each speaker's comments pertain to an open meeting agenda item. Unless adjusted by the presiding officer, comments by each speaker will be no longer than 3 minutes per the time limit in district's BED local. Please take note of the timer that is displayed on the screen to guide each speaker. When 1 minute remains, you will hear a chime, and when the allotted time has expired, a buzzer will sound. Welcome, Ms. Waits.
Good evening, Ms. Cordova, trustees, and Dr. Kincannon. My name is Mary Jane Waits, and I'm the Regional Membership Specialist for Region 12 from ATPE, the Association of Texas Professional Educators. On behalf of the nearly 350 ATPE members in Waco ISD, I want to express ATPE support for Agenda Item 7.M, which would authorize the district to pay a one-time retention bonus in August to paraprofessionals, auxiliary staff, including cafeteria workers, custodians, maintenance, and security guards, campus instructional specialists, counselors, assistant principals, and principals. We are particularly grateful for the inclusion of paraprofessionals and auxiliary staff in this proposal. It is essential to recognize the important contributions these school employees have to the educational experience. We thank the board and administrators for their continued efforts to support the employees of Waco ISD, and as always, ATPE is always available to you.
Thank you, Ms. Waits. We'll move on to item number 3, moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. Please pause with me as we take time for prayer, contemplation, reflection, or meditation. Okay, pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. And if the board members would meet me in front of the dais for special recognitions.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees, Dr. Kincannon. Each month, one campus selects 2 students to lead the Pledge of Allegiance at the regular business meeting of the Waco ISD Board of Trustees. For the month of April, Emmanuel Gallardo and Vania Gonzalez from University High School were selected for this honor. Emmanuel is a junior at University High School. His favorite subject is science, and he participates in soccer, dual credit courses, and is a UHS academic achiever. For fun, Emmanuel likes to play soccer, go bike riding, swimming, and go to the gym. Emmanuel is on track to complete his college algebra course at MCC with a perfect score of 100. When he graduates, he wants to be a radiology technologist. Thank you to his mother, Diana Gallardo, for being here tonight and sharing your wonderful son with us. Vanya is a senior at UHS. Her favorite subjects are child development and psychology. She is in the Student Council, National Honor Society, and Art Club secretary. Vanya is an academic achiever committee rep and a state qualifier for the Texas Association of Future Educators. Vanya is number 1 in her class and will complete her associate's degree in May. She plans to attend Rice University and would like to become a child psychologist. Thank you to her mother, Maria Vargas, for being here tonight and sharing your amazing daughter with us. Our next item is our Texas History Day contest. The Texas History Day contest was held on April the 15th, 2023 at the University of Texas in Austin. The theme this year was Frontiers in History, People, Places, Ideas. Katarina Telep, Emma Clark Martinez, and Finley Ritter were one of 6 teams from a group of 23 who made it to finals at the recent state competition. They won first place in state at the junior group division for their performance of Is There a Doctor in the House?, The Tale of Dr. Sarah Josephine Baker, and Typhoid Mary. These students advanced to the national competition, which will be held at the University of Maryland, College Park. Congratulations. Our next item is the Central Texas Science and Engineering Fair. The Central Texas Science and Engineering Fair was held at Baylor University in February. Jaden Wilson, Patrick Jones, and Terrence Bockham Jr. placed first in Materials Science Junior Division with their project Protect Those Eyes. They were selected to be in the top 1,000 out of 20,000 science fair participants worldwide. They advanced to the Texas Science and Engineering Fair, which is held at Texas A&M University on March 24th and 25th. Congratulations. Our next item is the 5A Region 3 Academic Meet. The University High School Prose and Poetry team represented Waco ISD at the 5A Region 3 UIL Academic Meet at Foster High School in Richmond, Texas on April the 22nd, 2023. Congratulations to the following students who will be advancing to state on May 17th and 18th in Austin at the University of Texas campus. Braylon Ben, second place poetry, and Tayrell Thompson, third place prose. Congratulations. Our next item is the Texas High School Women's Powerlifting Association State Championships. The Texas High School Women's Powerlifting Association State Championships was held on March the 18th, 2023. University High School student Crystal Sanchez was awarded second place in the 181-pound weight class for lifting a total of 1,020 pounds. And Samantha Thamert placed 5th in the 259 weight pound class, lifting a total of 890 pounds. Destiny Benavides completed in the 97-pound weight class and finished 7th overall, and Valeria Perez competed in the 97-pound weight class and finished 9th overall. Congratulations, ladies. Thank you to Coach Carmen Ramirez. Yes. Thank you to Coach Carmen Ramirez, Coach Draper, and Coach LaRue for being here tonight and leading these amazing athletes. Our next item is the Texas High School Coaches Association Academic All-State Awards, THSCA. To be nominated for an academic All-State, a student must be an athlete, student trainer or manager in good standing with the team, of good moral character, a senior, have an overall grade point average of 92 or above, including courses from 9th through 12th, and completed from 12th grade. Nominations must be made by the head coach of the sport, which are sent to the THSCA for review. Students are not guaranteed a spot on the team. Each student's GPA, class rank, SAT, and ACT score is considered. A point system determines which team they are placed on. The best team player can make is elite team, which requires near perfect scores in all categories. And the hierarchy then follows in this order: first team, second team, and honorable mention. For Waco High School boys soccer, we have James Bernius, first team, Roberto Alarcon, second team, Alejandro Betancourt, second team, Pierre Diata, honorable mention, and Fidencio Perez, honorable mention. For girls soccer, we have Sarah Schlappy, elite, Harmon Strother, first team, Alana Chapa, second team, and Kenyal Patlan, honorable mention. Thank you. Congratulations. And for boys tennis, we have James Bernius, elite, Hudson Rice, first team, and Roberto Alarcon, second team. And 2 of those have already come through the line. Girls tennis, we have Libby Hack, first team, Ilana Sharam, second team, Andrea Suarez, second team, and Margaret Lewis, second team. Congratulations. And for University High School boys soccer, we have Jose Juarez, honorable mention. And if we could have each of our coaches stand up and be recognized, thank you so much for all your hard work and dedication leading this amazing group of athletes. Thank you. And our last item is our Community Partner Award. Each month, Waco ISD recognizes a community partner making a difference for students with the Waco ISD Award for Outstanding Community Partners. This recognition celebrates the theme for the 2022-2023 school year, Lead from the Heart, and acknowledges the important impact that our community partners make in our lives of our students and staff. In April, the district is recognizing Creative Waco. Stephanie Wheat-Johnson, Art Apprenticeship Program Director, is here to receive the award. Creative Waco partners directly with Waco ISD for Art Apprenticeship and for their newest programming feature, Air Collaborative, led by Soledad Bautista, Director of Professional Development and Outreach for Creative Waco. Mr. Bautista led a Spanish-speaking youth cohort of this program for University High School this year. Students from University High participated in an innovative shift workshop at the Baylor Research and Innovation Collaborative that embeds design thinking. During this 3-day workshop, students worked hard to identify problems that affect schools and their peers. While working in collaborative groups, they developed proposals to solve these problems. On day 3, they presented their proposals to various members of the community who served as judges, and this program will be expanding to Waco High next year. Thank you so much for everything you do for our students and staff. Thank you so much. That concludes our special recognitions for tonight.
Great kids. My cushion here.
We'll give people a couple of minutes to file out, and we'll start in just a second. That's right, Andre. It's awesome.
He's fun.
That's awesome.
Fun guy.
Okay, always a fun time to celebrate students and coaches and the great work that's happening here in Waco ISD and our great community partners. Moving on to item 5, Superintendent Report. Dr. Kincannon.
Okay, I have a few items, and I might be a little longer than usual, so I'll give you that warning because we have some legislative things to talk about. But first, let's start with pre-kindergarten roundup. So pre-K registration is off and off to a strong start for next school year. This past Saturday, we held our pre-K roundup event out at the stadium. We currently have more than 382 potential students who are in the registration process, with close to 100 students completing the process on Saturday. I'd like to thank Gwen James, her team, and all of the campus and district administrators who worked the event. There were a lot of people out there making that possible. Summer enrichment program registration is now open for the second year of our summer enrichment program. And as you might recall, this program we started last year using federal ESSER funds. We'll use the same funding source again this year, about $200,000, I believe, to pay for these programs. Once again, we've partnered with community organizations and some of our district programs to provide a wide range of summer learning opportunities for our students. Some of our community partners include Art Center Waco, Baylor University, Girl Scouts of Central Texas, iCodeSchool.com, the Waco Civic Theater, World Hunger Relief, and the YMCA of Central Texas. And we did expand the number of students we're serving at YMCA for this summer. We had an incredible response to last year's program, and I am so thankful to our community partners and our staff to work together to expand and enhance those offerings once again for our kids. Activities are scheduled between June 5th and August 5th, and I just wanted to announce that participants are limited to 2 camps because we want everyone to have access to those camps. We opened registration last week, and those spaces are filling up quickly. So we do expect to reach capacity ahead of the May 18th deadline to register, so we encourage our families to register and get signed up soon. More information about the program can be found on our website at www.wacoisd.org/summer enrichment. Academic achievers, looking for our brochures for our board. I hope we have them. I hope you have a copy. Did you get those? Great. Of our beautiful programs from University and Waco High School Academic Achievers Recognition Ceremonies, which were held over the last week. These special events honor sophomores, juniors, and seniors who have maintained a 96.5 GPA or above, and provide our soon-to-be graduates with a chance to pay tribute to one of their teachers who has made a difference in their time in high school. So I hope you take the time to look through those and read about those students and their teachers. They were really beautifully done. Both events celebrated our students and their families, and it was just a great event for everyone, including our staff who support them. I want to thank our advanced academics team and our campus teams for facilitating such a memorable evening celebrating academic achievements in our schools. And I want to thank Trustee Vidania and Trustee Grant for attending those events. Thank you very much. Bond sale. I am pleased to report, and Ms. Davis is the expert. She might be behind that pole. She's usually back behind that pole. I can't see her. She's the expert, but I'm reporting this evening that we sold the remainder of our bonds last Thursday. And despite the volatility of the market, we were able to secure good rates that remain better than what was communicated to our voters leading up to the bond election. So the overall bond program will be in at an all-in rate of about 4.12%. Is that correct? She's nodding her head yes. Say that again. Yeah, that's an early calculation, and that's really fantastic. And so that's an impressive final sale, and that was bolstered by Moody's maintaining our district's good bond rating. And that rating reflects the district's trend of positive financial operations, leading to a strong available fund balance and liquidity ratios that are above peers, along with low fixed costs. Positive factors in the rating included a thriving local economy, an established retail base, and the stabilizing institutional presence of Baylor University. So it's a very healthy community. When our community voted to approve the May 2021 bond program, they trusted us to be good stewards of their tax dollars, and we are doing just that. So I want to say thank you to Cheryl Davis and her team for all of their work on this. We do plan to have Dusty back in June to give you the full report, but I did want to mention that. And now, legislative update. It's a big one. There's a lot happening. And we have about a month left to go during this legislative session, and a lot of territory to cover to really fully understand the impact on us as well as other Texas school districts. So I want to mention a few topics that my team, and some of the bills that we've been following, and then I would like you to know that I've tried to share information on some of these with our teachers as I've been out and about doing spring update presentations. And many of these topics are directly related to our schools and impact our teachers and administrators. So I'm going to start with school safety. And this is a topic that's been talked about in the legislative session extensively for a good while. I know since 2017, and since 2017, we've yet to see any significant investment that proactively funds safety measures and or improves mental health support for our students. Any bills passed during this session should include funding and flexibility to make our schools safer. There have been several bills filed regarding school safety, including House Bill 3, House Bill 13, Senate Bill 11, and some others. It's almost overwhelming to try to keep up with all of them, but I want to talk a little bit about House Bill 3, which passed the full House on Monday and is headed over to the Senate. And it includes a noteworthy increase in the state school safety allotment. So we currently get $9.74 per ADA for school safety. This bill would increase that to $100 per ADA. But it also requires school districts to have armed personnel at every campus all across the state, and then some other things. And that one is that's still early in the process too, so we're not quite sure where that will land, but that's a good investment. And the first one we've seen. Basic allotment. This topic has come on since the pandemic, basically funding enrollment versus ADA. And we, as you know, school districts have been, really since House Bill 3 in 2019, we've had so many challenges with funding. And then, of course, the 14.5% inflation and wage pressures that we've had for every role, from custodian to classroom teachers. We've had increased costs in nearly every area of our district operations. We've had declining enrollment. All these things have put a tremendous strain on our budget. And we're not alone. That's happening all across the state. So House Bill 100 is the bill that we're watching there, and that includes an increase to the state's basic allotment for per pupil funding, and we are seeing some minor movement in basing funding on actual student enrollment numbers rather than on average daily attendance for some of the weights, and that could be an important bill for us. We are one of a handful of states that does still fund public schools on attendance, which has long been seen as something that contributes to inequities. Funding for enrollment more accurately reflects how we plan. It impacts how we hire and administer programs and all kinds of things in our district. So that's an important bill. And the last one, this is not the last one. It's the last page I printed, but so I can speak to House Bill 4545 without my notes. But education savings accounts and vouchers, not a new idea with the Texas legislature, but certainly a topic that is being debated and discussed, I think, much more aggressively than sometimes in the past. And this is a challenging one politically. There's a lot of jargon around parent empowerment and parent choice, and so it can be difficult to really understand what's being proposed in those bills. But I can tell you that vouchers or education savings grants in any form will take resources away from public schools during one of the most challenging times in our history, and we are certainly not for vouchers or education savings accounts. And the last one, I don't have my notes, but House Bill 4545 is the bill that came in the last legislative session that requires us to provide extensive tutoring for students who have not passed STAR, and requires a certain number of minutes in very small group settings. and has been really a challenge to implement, especially at the high school level. So there are some bills out there to help us with that, and they look pretty good. So we're monitoring those and are pleased. And I'm looking to Elizabeth to see if I've forgotten any other ones. Yes, there are, Senate Bill 9 is the bill that is called the Teacher Bill of Rights. That's the one that's going to include teacher pay raises. They're really looking at a one-time stipend or bonus for teachers based on the enrollment of the school district. That's nice, but a one-time payment doesn't stay with school districts, so that's not a great thing for us for the long haul. So we're monitoring that one heavily, so appreciate telling you guys. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer. Like I said, there are all kinds of bills flying around, and we're doing our best to monitor them. I think every one of my team has assigned different bills to watch, and we've been talking about them every week, so thank you.
Are there any questions? Well, Dr. Kincannon, thank you so much for keeping us up to date with the legislative session. We know that this is an important one, and it is chock full of bills that would affect us. So thank you so much for that information. Moving on to number 6. Are there any questions on number 6? Information items, reports? Okay. Yes, Trustee Guillory?
Good evening. I was looking at 5810, and it was one talking about the student enrollment. If you can elaborate on that, and yeah, I think you said on there it was like a continuous loss of student enrollment that contributed to a loss in the budget. If you can kind of elaborate on it, so I can understand where you were coming from right there.
Sure, and we'll probably talk about that some a little bit during the budget presentation tonight as well. But since our state revenue is still based on average daily attendance, which is, a part of enrollment too, we were down this year from what we had originally projected. Not down as much as we were in the last 2 years,
Okay.
but we're still down about 230 to 234 kids. So with that, and then our attendance was down some the first semester. Again, not quite as low as it was last year, and it has started coming up. I have not yet projected based on 5th 6 weeks. I'm just through 4th 6 week. So this next week, I'm going to try to look at where we are at the end of 5th 6 weeks. So when we look at my projections as well, the way that the templates work, we kind of use the patterns from the prior year. So last year, because our attendance was low, I think our projections might be a little bit low as far as where we're going to end up with revenues because of that. And if our attendance is better this year, I think it'll come out a little bit better. But yes, we're still, over the last 3 years, we've lost over 1,000 kids. And we're hoping that doesn't continue, that somehow turns around. Both my projections for next year and our demographers' projections for next year do not indicate another loss in students. A lot of our lower numbers have been at secondary. I think maybe kids not coming, they got maybe too far behind in credits and did not come back to school. But our pre-K numbers are up, and some of our early grade levels are up, so we're kind of hopeful that we'll get some of those kids, slowly but surely get some of those kids back.
Yes, ma'am. That's what I needed. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to, seeing that there's no more questions, we're moving on to agenda item number 7, consent agenda. Consider and take appropriate action. Are there any items that need to be pulled? Okay, which item was it? M? Okay. Do you want us to pull that one? We'll pull that one and vote on that separate if you have a question. Okay, great. And then we're pulling 701 for spelling mistake.
Oh, we corrected it online.
Oh, you did? Okay, never mind. It has been corrected, so I'm going to leave it in there. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented with the exception of 7M. Thank you, Mr. Guillory. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Are there any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you. 7M, retention bonuses for paraprofessional, auxiliary staff, and campus administrators and professionals. I'm sorry, I don't have it up here. Who is presenting on that one?
It's Dr. Lopez's item, but I don't see him, and oh, there he is.
Here he is.
I can answer questions, so.
He's come from behind.
He did, he heard his name.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Okay. Dr. Lopez?
So I just had a quick question. Auxiliary staff, does that include interpreters?
The auxiliary staff are included in our paraprofessionals 201 to 210. But yes, they're included in that bonus, the retention.
Okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to double check, that's all. That was quick. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? So everyone's getting a little, yes. Mr.
Not a
Davis.
question. I would just say I'm really excited to see this bonus. I think it's a very deserving group, so I'm glad that they're getting this retention bonus.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank y'all.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this forward. Want to commend the administration for bringing this forward. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve the administration's recommendation for retention bonuses for paraprofessionals, auxiliary staff, campus administrators, and professionals.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, I think that was
Just pick.
Vidania. He said it. Second by Mr. Vidania. Any questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Congratulations, everyone. Okay, here we are, moving on to item number 8, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the approval of change order number 1 to core construction and time extension, fire lane repair allowance, and approval of allowance expenditure for accelerated costs related to the construction of G.W. Carver Middle School. Ms. Barrera.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Kincannon, board members. In this next agenda item, we're requesting 3 things, and we're using 2 instruments to do it. We're asking you to approve a time extension of 31 days. We're asking you to approve the creation of an allowance of $100,000 for repairs, and we're asking you to approve the use of up to a certain number of contractor contingency funds for acceleration of the work. The necessity of this request is a result of a change in sequence that core construction experienced. They were required to put the final concrete fire lane product in prior to going vertical with their concrete panels. In the construction process, anytime you hold off on something, it kind of squashes everything into the remaining time left. So you have to do less work in more time. So not being able to stand the panels up in November, which is what they anticipated, they were not able to do that until January, and they've had to catch up, basically. The fire lane repair allowance is established so that in the event it's damaged, because it has had cranes rolling over it, lots of equipment rolling over it, and though Corps is taking precautions not to damage it, it could be damaged. So we need to set aside some funds to repair it to as-new condition, which is what the district requires. If we don't need to use that money, we will not use it. It will be returned to the district. The acceleration amount that is included is, in AEA number 8, is the total number of acceleration, the total amount of acceleration that we could foresee from now until the end of the project, July 31st. We did not want to come back to you every month and ask for more money on this. I wanted, because we know the scale of our challenge right now, we wanted to come to you one time and say, this is what it is, and it also helps expedite payment to the contractor, which when you're trying to get a job done, you have to keep paying them on time, quickly, and not be held up because we have to take something to get approval on it. So we wanted to ask for this approval so that we can continue to make good progress. We hope we won't spend it all. I mean, that's the goal. We are carefully watching this money. O'Connell Robertson is helping us carefully watch this money. Corps is working hard to carefully watch this money, but that's what we need. We need that. That's why we need it. It is included in the contingency within the contract. It does not increase the GMP.
Okay, I will entertain a motion in a second, and at that point, if there are discussion questions to be had, we can have discussion at that point. So I will entertain a motion to approve change order number 1 to extend the substantial completion date to July 31st, 2023, establish a contingency allowance of $100 for potential repairs to the fire lane, approve the allowance expenditure authorization number 8 to use contractor contingency funds to accelerate the construction of G.W. Carver Middle School, and to authorize the superintendent to execute change order number 1 and AEA number 8. Entertain a motion?
So moved. Do I need to read the whole thing again?
Nope, you don't. I read it for you. Thank you, Mr. Grant. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Iazetti. Okay, now we can open up the floor for discussion. Yes, Mr. Grant.
I got a couple of questions. This is frustrating on many ends. It's inconceivable to me that a solid fire lane be installed before your biggest machines ever come on the property. It's calling for the investment of concrete to break. Did we have a structural engineer that said, or any kind of engineer that said that the road base, isn't that policy, that you get just road base and that an engineer says this is built to standard and it will work? Is there a change in building code? What's the difference? Because we didn't do this with university. I've never really heard of this before until this project. So what changed in the process that is causing us the delay, but then also obviously these increased expenditures?
We did have the geotechnical engineer validated that the stabilized road base would be adequate to support both the crane, concrete trucks, and fire truck. So we did validate that. We did share that information with the chief, deputy chief.
Okay. And what was the rationale given that that wasn't enough? Because that's what we've always done, correct?
He didn't think that was enough.
And how long was the delay?
Well, it's a little over 2 months.
That we set because they wanted a concrete.
No, we didn't. I mean, they didn't sit.
We couldn't raise walls.
They worked on the concrete and they worked on the walls, but they couldn't start raising anything until the concrete was complete.
Is there a change to code? What's different? Because this isn't normal. Hasn't been normal.
I don't know what was in place at the time University High School. I know what is on the city's website for what the requirement is, and it says an all-weather road surface. And an all-weather road surface is a surface that can hold up in all kinds of weather, which a stabilized road base can do.
So the stabilized road base met what's on the city code of expectations?
In our opinion, yes.
Ms. Barrera, I have a question. You've been doing this a long time. Is this typical?
I'm sorry?
Is this common? I mean, what material what's the standard in a project like this?
In my experience, the standard is a temporary road base because you don't want to put down your permanent surface because it will be damaged, and you don't want all of that equipment rolling over your brand-new surface. The temporary road base has to be maintained during the process if it gets damaged, but that's very commonly, it's maintained by the contractor, they know that.
Is it common that that moves, or, I'm curious what would cause it to shift other than weather and big giant 1,000-pound machines running over it? What is, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what's Waco's standard? Is it required of all new construction similar to this, that they pour finished concrete?
No.
No. Okay.
It does not say that in their construction standards.
Another question.
Yes.
For Dr. Kincannon.
Nope.
How many, you've built lots of schools. Is this,
I have built about 7 brand-new schools in the city of Belton and the city of Temple, and never was required to put in a permanent fire lane prior to the end of the project. We always had a temporary road base.
Okay, hold on one second, Mr. Davis. Mr. Ochoa, do you still have a question?
go ahead.
Oh, well, actually, Ms. Iazetti. Yes, Ms. Iazetti.
Are you concerned about the communication that's happening between core contracting and the city? Are they able to represent us in the back and forth that's necessary with the other entities?
Well, that communication is appropriate between CORE and the city because they coordinate that. It's real important for contractors to work closely and well with the authorities having jurisdiction, like the fire department. And so in their effort, I mean, they made the effort to do that. And when they got the answer from the deputy chief that they needed to go with concrete and the final asphalt, then they just did that because you want to get along with your fire chief.
But you thought that all of their communication back and forth trying to figure out this was appropriate?
Yes, it was appropriate. I mean, we became aware of the issue as a schedule impact in November. And at that point, we started basically intervening and asking questions.
It was brought to my attention on December 5th, and I immediately called the city manager, and we spoke about it. And then it was December 12th when I was at the job trailer, and we made a phone call to, I think he's deputy fire marshal.
Deputy Chief Bronick.
Bronick, yes. And that's when we got the approval to move forward with the construction of the school without the asphalt in the fire lane at the front of the building.
Any more questions? Hold on one second, Mr. Ochoa, so sorry. Mr. Davis.
I wanted to know, so we're saying that what was required of CORE is not in line with what's on the city's website. So I wonder, did we challenge that at all, or did we just comply with what they asked? Because I'm confused if that's not common practice and that's not what's listed on their website, why we wouldn't challenge that and why we would put ourselves in a position to potentially have to shell out more money to repair a road that we know isn't going to work. So I was just trying to see, did we try to negotiate? Did we try to challenge that and just not win, or how did that go?
As soon as we became aware that it was an issue, we immediately took it to the city. Asked them, and then they did agree to let them stop. But by that point, they had the concrete all the way behind the building. So as you've noticed, if you've been out to the school for the various events, the front parking lot is road base. And it's been used and it's been driven on and it's just fine. So we left it that way. It's not paved yet. The front isn't.
We worked for 2 months to try to settle this deal, and finally, after 2 months, we stopped the concrete, kept the road base that's in the front, and started moving on. But that delay is costing us $820,944, right?
Potentially.
Potentially.
So,
So at
Okay,
least
hold on one second.
720,000?
Yeah, well, we're, it's like as-needed basis. So, you know, that's the ceiling.
Okay, Mr. Ochoa, you've been waiting patiently. Oh, you still, oh. Okay, well, hold on. Let's do Mr. Ochoa, and we're going to come back to Mr. Davis. Mr. Ochoa?
Oh, I mean, you can go ahead. I think we're all trying to figure out the
Yeah,
microphone.
I think
the
everyone,
microphone system.
everyone is, yes, Mr.
I
Davis.
just have a couple more questions and I'll let. So when we took it to the city and we said, hey, this is not in line with your code per your website, what was the response?
Okay,
I'll take that one. I spoke with the city manager who said, this is not normal. And then that's when things got corrected after that point. But by then, we had fire lanes installed, and I couldn't tell you how much of it was done. I know I saw video, of course, in December, but probably pretty much all of it was done at that point by the time it made its way to my office.
yeah.
But we got it resolved. And then again, like I said, December 12th, I had to go to the job trailer, and I sat in on a phone call with the deputy fire marshal who then gave verbal approval for us to move forward, because the question at that point was, by the contractor, was if we pour this asphalt, it's going to cost you $200,000 to repair, and we need to know if you're going to do that. And I obviously I can't make that decision. Didn't have the authority to spend the $200,000 at that point, and I certainly wasn't going to go against the fire marshal. So we got the deputy fire marshal on the phone, and that's when we got the verbal approval.
Did we not see that happening before? If it wasn't standard practice, if it wasn't aligned with the city's code, I'm just trying to figure out why we didn't wait till we got that resolved before we went ahead with what we knew wouldn't work.
That's a good question, Mr. Davis. A lot of times contractors do things differently. It's their business. It's called means and methods. They can figure out how to best approach the job. And at that time, I believe they thought they were going to just do the concrete and be able to still make their schedule. They didn't realize the impact until later. And so that's why we just they proceeded. They did not notify us of any issue or concern until much later, because then it became apparent that it was going to have a bigger impact than they thought.
And what can we do to make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen moving forward? Because I remember a couple board meetings ago, we had an HVAC situation and we had to bring some more money. And then at that time, we were guaranteed, this is it. We're on track. We're going to finish on time. There's nothing in our way. But it sounds like since December, we've known that it was an issue. So I'm just wondering, is this it? Or how do we know that there won't be other things to come up? I know we're giving ourselves like a cost allowance if there are other, but do you foresee anything else coming?
There may be some other things that we come to you with. I don't want to say that there isn't. We don't anticipate anything else that would exceed the GMP. But there may be some other costs that we still have to come to you with, but not related to acceleration.
These are big projects, and as you can imagine, a lot of moving pieces, and you have to make decisions along the way sometimes when you can't get materials, and which was the case of the AC handler, AC unit, and so no guarantees. We don't anticipate any other changes, but it's possible. It's a big job.
We see this being a problem in our other projects to come. Like I know we're working on Waco High, we have Tennyson, we have all the other projects. Is this going to be a problem, or is it resolved now? Do we know what the fire road needs to be? Have we worked that out with the fire marshal? Is that good to go now, or will we have to redo this each time?
Another great question. We have been very proactive at both Tennyson Middle School and Waco High School. On Tennyson Middle School, the actual building plan showed the location of the temporary fire lane and the construction of the temporary fire lane, and we actually have approval of city plans I mean, our permit plans show it, and we're working closely with the fire marshal's office, with the local fire station, showing them diagrams that show how they have a 150-foot layout for their hoses. I mean, really, we're really trying to go above and beyond to communicate well with them.
Thank you. I think, Mr. Ochoa, did you still have your? Okay.
Make sure we noted that this school is being built on an extremely accelerated timeline.
Yes,
That
it
this delay was more amplified because we are trying
Yes.
to do this so fast, and CORE working with us to still get this building done before the school year starts. I'm so glad that the students and teachers will still be able to start the fall of 2023 in this building as of right now.
Yes.
I think, Ms. Barrera, I think that a lot of us have a lot of questions. So I was wondering if we could come back in May with a report. Maybe, we've always had such a great working relationship with the city. Maybe we can get the entities together and kind of figure out a game plan moving forward, having a clear, again, we've got a great relationship with them. So maybe we can get a report. Dr. Kincannon and the administration can give us kind of a report of kind of what happened. In May, so we can figure that out. Because I think there's a lot of questions, and I don't know if we're going to get all the answers right now.
I do have some questions, but before I ask questions, I want to make sure this was a topic that I can actually speak on, or do I need to, recuse myself from this particular agenda item?
There is practically no law out there dealing with when a board member must recuse themselves from voting on anything. There's just not. This is certainly not an item that I could tell you that there is legally any requirement that you would recuse yourself, Keith, from voting on.
Well, not voting. That's a great point too. But even question.
But certainly, I mean, the be-all, end-all is voting. And certainly, I think an even lower bar. Let me say it the other way: a much higher bar for what it would take to preclude you from engaging in the discussion, asking questions, et cetera. I think you're free to do that on this agenda item if you choose to do so, or free to abstain from doing so if you think that's what's appropriate.
I'm asking you, as the attorney, is it something that I should recuse myself from?
From discussion or voting, or both?
Both. I want to answer on both.
My opinion in a non-legal sense, because my opinion in a non-legal sense is it shouldn't carry any weight with anybody here, frankly, because I'm not on the board. I mean, as a legal issue, there is no legal issue with you doing either one. There's just not. I mean, you as a board member have the full authority. Just because this is dealing with your employer, none of this is going to my knowledge, going to have anything to do with your employment, top, side, or bottom. It's just not. What the district does with regard to this agenda item, what the board does with regard to this agenda item, got nothing to do with you financially. You don't have a financial interest in this. That's what usually drives these matters, particularly for recusal.
Just wanted to make
voting
sure.
Especially.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I mean, I think that's very clear. Should be clear to everyone that any action the board takes in response to the pending motion, you have no financial stake in that, neither in your role as a board member nor in your role as an employee of the city of Waco. Does that help any?
Yes, sir.
So the fire department's error that led to this delay? The nod to stop or to proceed came from the fire marshal's office. And I think that's the challenge here, is that we're talking about something that's going to cost us possibly $820,000 that hinged on a decision made by the fire marshal's office.
Are you asking that in the context of Trustee Guillory?
Yes. I just want to make sure we're good in having our discussion.
I think I'm going to go ahead and call the question. We have an agenda item here. We're not going to get any answers to this. I think getting into this, we were presented with facts. There were questions asked. And I think that we have this agenda item before us to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the approval change order number 1 to core construction for the time extension and fire lane repair allowance and approval of allowance expenditure for acceleration costs related to the construction of G.W. Carver Middle School. That is the agenda item right now. I think there are a lot of questions, and we can present another agenda item in our May meeting that will collaborate with the city and kind of figure out how we got to this point. So,
with more information about this specific agenda item, I don't think we should vote on this specific agenda item if we can't get all of our questions answered and we can't be clear on the decision. I don't think it behooves the district at all for us to vote on something that we still have questions about or are still unsure on.
okay, Peter, can you help me? We had a motion and a second on the first, and then there is another motion.
You need a second on a motion to call the question. I took your comment as being the motion, and you have to have a second on that to then vote on whether to end debate and vote on the pending motion.
Great, so the pending motion is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action. I called the question. Is there a second? Well,
I think you gotta have to wait and see if there's a second, because you got a motion. If there's a second, then you gotta vote on
that one first.
motion, and it's not debatable.
And then if we don't get a second, because we want to continue the discussion, how could we table this discussion? What would be the steps?
This same thing, motion,
Would I
and a
have to
second,
make a
and
new
then everyone
motion
would
to
vote.
table it?
Make a motion to table it, and a second, and then there'd have to.
Well, we have a first motion already in play.
Okay.
The
And
chair's gotta see if
So if the call to question gets seconded but gets voted down, then he can make a motion to
Yes.
table, correct? Yes, sir. I second it so that we can just call that question.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. There, we'll close the discussion, and I will take a vote, and this is simply for the consider, discuss, take appropriate action regarding the approval of this change order to core construction for time extension, fire lane repair allowance, approval of allowance expenditure, acceleration cost related to the construction of G.W. Carver Middle School. It's to get the work going. In May, we will have a report, and we'll work with the city from now till May to get some answers.
Don't we have to vote on the
Call
call
for
to
the
question?
vote.
We're
You
gonna,
gotta
we're
call
gonna
for the
vote
question.
on this, yes. to-
No,
Question.
you're called the question.
You called,
Okay, call the question, yes, sorry. All in favor to end discussion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Say nay. Okay, end of discussion, unanimously.
yes. Madam President, I would like to make a motion to table this discussion until our May meeting when we adequately have the information to decide on
That's
this.
not what we just
agenda
voted
item.
for.
You can't do that now because the question's been called and you have to vote on the motion.
To the final vote, okay. Right, okay. So I will entertain a motion again on this. Oh, vote, sorry, yes, I'm. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Davis, is there anyone else?
I did recuse myself.
Oh, Mr. Guillory, Ms. Boyd, Mr. Guillory is recusing himself from this. So it passes 5-1. Again, thank you, Mr. Russick, thank you, Ms. Barrera. Again, Dr. Kincannon and Ms. Barrera, I really would, again, encourage you to discuss this with the city and make sure that all the, everyone is at the table who needs to be at the table. And making sure that, again, to Mr. Davis's question, this does not happen. Again, we need a little bit of clarity, and that's a lot of money, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Ochoa.
Few days have been extremely stressful, especially for people like me who aren't as familiar with construction projects of this size. So yes, I am also looking forward to, I know Dr. Kincannon has a great working relationship with Bradley Ford, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of that.
Great, okay. Moving on to number 9, consider, discuss, take appropriate action regarding the approval of change order number 2 to Core Construction for safety upgrades to meet the new TEA standards related to the construction of GW Carver Middle School. Ms. Barrera, it looks like you're going to be here for a little bit.
Yes, and I've asked Jared and Doug to come up here in case there's any technical questions on the film or anything.
Great.
So this agenda item upgrades the security systems for Carver Middle School to reflect the TEA standards that came about last summer and last fall that weren't in place at the time we bid the job. So we're increasing the perimeter fence height to 8 feet. We had a 6-foot fence, but we increased it to 8 feet, and we're adding intruder-resistant film at the front of the building. So all of the building openings that are on the exterior of the 8-foot perimeter fence will have the intruder-resistant film on them up to 7 feet high or wherever the mullion is. So the whole glass panel will have the film on it. And then adding interior and exterior door numbers. So that's not a very big deal to do that. But we're just making sure that we have everything in place so that what we're doing at Carver will match what we're doing at Tennyson, and we're being very consistent across the district. So I think your packet had a plan in it that showed highlighted areas, that showed some red and blue highlighting at the front of the school. It's the very last page of that agenda item, and that shows you where the intruder-resistant film will be located. It's appropriate to do this by change order at this time because we are getting down to the end of the job, and we are, as you can tell, we need to save our contingency for other things right now. So we need to go ahead and do this as a change order. It is an added scope that was not anticipated prior, so it is appropriate.
Great. I will entertain a motion to approve change order number 2 for the costs associated with adding perimeter security upgrades to meet new TEA safety standards for GW Carver Middle School, and authorize the superintendent to execute change order number 2.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Guillory. Do I have a second? Second. Whoa, we'll give it to Mr. Ochoa. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I do have a question.
So sorry. Yes, I should ask for questions. Mr. Guillory, yes, please.
Yeah, so this came down from TEA. When was that? When did that come down?
Yes. I'm sorry.
I said, when did TEA approve to put the...
Well, there's other standards that are still pending, but this takes us current through the ones that were approved, I believe, earlier this spring, or was it?
In a few months, they were their proposed standards for safety, which include the non-scalable fencing and the intruder-resistant film. And so we're building the school. We want to go ahead and do it.
And will we still be putting in the technology, the AI technology, as well as the
yes,
the metal detectors?
Yes,
so
the evolved system. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm just really happy to see that we're moving in that direction to add in the security, like the film, and then as well as the AI technology and the metal detectors. That's, I appreciate
The
it.
AI technology is the metal detector. It's the scanning device.
Is that the computerized one? That's the one you're
Yes.
talking about? Okay, but the actual metal detectors, like what we have at, like, wait, that's.
It replaces them. It does the same thing, but just with the more intelligent software, with the software instead of the, yeah.
Will it be only AI, or will we have a mixture of both?
Right now, we're planning for it to be AI, but we'll have the equipment, the other equipment in the district. If we want to use it, we can.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, Mr.
We
Ochoa.
were in Washington DC recently, and we were very happy to see that every secure area and every secure building we went into used that Evolve AI technology. And my wife got a little upset, but I took some time to speak with some of the security guards, and they all mentioned how easy it was and how effective it was. So I was really pleased to see that.
Okay. Now I will, there's no further discussion? Oh, yes, Mr. Davis.
Do we see any other safety measures, I guess, coming down the pipe that we may have to add before the school is completed?
Well, legislators are still in session,
Yeah.
so I haven't heard anything specific. There is one bill that speaks to doors, I think, door inspections, which there's no description of that, so I'm thinking that might be similar to what we're already doing with the Texas School Safety Center this year, but I don't know of any physical requirements in any of the bills, but Jared and Doug may be tracking those more closely than I am. Yeah.
Great. I just also wanted to say thank you thank you guys for putting in these safety measures, even though they're proposed. I think, yeah, I agree with Mr. Guillory in that it's always nice to make sure that we go above and beyond for our students. With that, I will entertain a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And item number 10, review and discuss schematic design of Kendrick Elementary and South Waco Elementary renovations. Ms. Barrera.
Yes, well, this is going to be Andrew and Jared, I'm sorry, Andrew, Doug and those two guys, yeah, that's the glasses, no. Doug and Jared's show. But I just wanted to say this is a review and presentation, and we look forward to feedback so that we can bring it back to you and get approval at the May board meeting. So, take it away.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no vote. This is just review and discuss, yes.
There's two other architects in our office, both with glasses that look a lot like me. So I get Chris, I get Andrew. It's all over the map. So, good evening. Really excited to be here with y'all today to discuss the Kendrick and South Waco Elementary School projects. Anytime I get to work on elementary schools, it always hits home for me. My wife's a second grade teacher, I think I've mentioned before. So I always have somebody at home I can, pick their brain and get some feedback as well. So these are some of my favorite ones. But again, as Gloria mentioned, just going to go through the two campuses and where we're at as far as the schematic design process and talk a little bit about the schedule. The one project is a new build and the other one is a renovation addition. So they are following somewhat parallel schedules, but there's a little bit of difference between the two. And I always like to throw up this graphic here at the beginning. It's the word cloud that we generated early on when we were talking with the users. There's some really great feedback from all the meetings that we've had with the students and the staff. So I always like to keep that in there as a reminder of our mission. So first I'll go through Kendrick Elementary School here. This is the proposed design. So you'll see on the top left, Bagby Avenue and Kendrick Lane on the top right. Just to orient yourself there, we are keeping the new entry off of Kendrick Lane. That was in discussions with the staff and with the user groups, really wanting to make sure we keep that front door off of Kendrick, you'll see a dedicated entry for parent drop-off. And so parents and teachers and buses will have separated drives to make sure we're having good traffic control across the site. And then you'll see the 2 dedicated parking lots. If you're familiar with that campus, parking can be a little bit of a challenge out there. So very excited with the group to have lots of parking for staff and for visitors. And then as you work your way down the site plan, obviously the main building there in white, and then you'll see in the back with the bus loop, that gives them plenty of queuing space so they can queue buses and vans for pickup each day. And then the yellow that you see on those, the 2 sections of the site plan there represent the playgrounds. And so we have actually 2 separate playground areas for the littles and for the olders. That was a really big discussion with the users, is making sure that the little ones and the big ones have that opportunity to get outside and have some separation, as well as then at the very bottom you'll see the field. So we're able to fit a good-sized practice field, or really just a play field out there on the site as well. And looking into the floor plan here, one of the really key elements that we talked about during the design process with the teachers and the PEC was how we want the organization of the school overall to work. And really what came out of that was grade level organization for each neighborhood. And so you'll see in that dark blue color, each of those pods is an individual grade level. So on the left side, under right where it says first floor plan, you'll see those 3 wings. That's your pre-K, your kinder, and your first. And then all the way kind of on that top right corner, you'll see, again, in that dark blue, second, third, fourth, and fifth. You'll see that third, fourth, and fifth are on that second floor. This is still a pretty small site, even with having the opportunity to demolish the existing campus to give us a little more breathing room. It's still pretty tight. So having a 2-story solution does help a little bit with the efficiency and allowing us to have the things that we wanted on site. And so again, your classroom wings on the outside, and in the middle you have all your shared collaborative space. So you've got your cafeteria, and you've got your gym, and your library, and your secure entry there. And then the red at the top of that plan is your admin. And then just wanted to share a quick view of the proposed exterior concept. Again, this is at the schematic design level, so we're going to continue to work through this, but one of the discussion points we heard with the group was they really want this to feel warm and inviting, get that mid-century modern kind of vibe, something that doesn't feel too sterile, doesn't feel too cold, but they've got a great community and a great culture at that campus now. And how can we pull that into this new school design? And so using some warmer materials, getting that brick, that wood tones, those darker metals, really using those strategies to make this feel like a home for these elementary school kids. That was really important with this project. Any questions on Kendrick before I jump over to South Waco? Yes, sir.
Oh, no, it's just early.
Parking lot facing portion versus what you could fence off, knowing that we will glaze all the windows that aren't within the 8-foot fence. Do you see that basically the whole front side, those 4 surfaces where it says main, all being exposed to open?
So right now the secure perimeter is, I'm not sure if this will show up on the V or not. It won't. Might show up on this though. So if you can see this here, right now this portion of the building here that faces basically this visitor parking, we're planning for that. That's basically your public facing portion. Okay. So as parents come in, they drop off and they exit, they're not inside the secure perimeter of the fence. And so I think to answer your question, yes, the faces here that face out towards the parking lot are not behind that fence. And then you'll kind of see, it's hard to see in this plan, but this dark line here at that corner, and then we're actually going to, I think, move it down so that this parking lot is actually accessible off of Kendrick, but we would tie into this classroom wing as well, or actually this corner, sorry, thank you, to this corner here. And so basically all of your entries on this entire section of the plan would be behind that 8-foot fence.
So we'll need to make sure that we glaze all the areas that are not behind the fence, correct?
So this portion at the front, yes, that would be the areas, again, according to the language that proposed TEA, would be the areas adjacent to any of your exterior entries.
Yeah. Okay.
And this plan is, I want to remind everyone, this plan is the plan that moves Kendrick Elementary students to the Indian Spring campus about January, this coming January. So they would be off campus. We would completely demolish Kendrick and build this facility there.
And I'll talk a little bit about that schedule.
Okay, great.
So
Thank you for
I
that.
can answer questions on that as well.
Yes,
sir.
Mr. Davis.
Or have y'all started working on plans for the inside?
Yes, we have started, but we have, again, as I just mentioned, wrapped up schematic design. So right now, it was really about getting all the major parts and pieces in place from a planning standpoint. And now our interiors team and our architecture team are having the conversations with the teachers and the PEC to kind of gather what their hopes and dreams are and what they want to see on the inside of the facility, looking at precedent, looking at how they want to operate in their classroom neighborhoods. So talking about finishes, talking about what that feeling is. Again, we heard a lot about want that warm and inviting feeling, not the cold and sterile. And so our interiors department is starting to put together the package for the interior design, and we'll come in a future meeting to present that.
But schematic, this is schematic design.
What you're seeing, yeah.
So this is what you'll be asked to approve when we come back in May.
Correct.
And then what Doug is talking about is the next step, which is design development, which was what you're looking for, which will provide a more in-depth look at the school.
Mr. Ochoa.
For everyone with the PEC involves, I've spoken to Ms. Lozano about how much input they're giving to this.
Yeah, our project executive committee. So we've had a project executive committee who's been meeting. We've met, I don't know, thank you, Jared, 9 times. And that includes our principals, Ms. Lozano, Ms. Frazier from South Waco Elementary, myself. I think we have Dr. Kornblum in there, Jerry Allen representing technology. I think special ed has been at the table, Ms. Barrera, and Alta Vista Elementary principal. Thank you for reminding me of that. So we have come together to continue to discuss the design. We've been all around it. We started with, we're going to build right next to the old Kendrick. We looked at multiple site plans. We've talked about philosophy and where the grade levels are located, what kind of spaces we need, gone through that programming spaces phase. So it's been pretty extensive. We've gotten a lot of really good feedback from all of the elementary principals, and of course we got some fun kid feedback as well, and then teachers have been involved in the process. So it's been, we've had a lot of meetings. I think we have another one this week, or next week.
Yeah, on week of the 8th.
Yes, so thank you for the question.
Yes,
Yeah. So this it reminds me of Tennyson now, where I drop my kids off every morning. And you're supposed to turn right out of the parking lot at Tennyson, but some parents want to go left.
Sure.
I'm just putting myself in this position. If I'm leaving...
Here you're talking about?
Yeah, if I'm leaving the parking lot and the person in front of me wants to go left and stops, and it causes all the cars to get backed up, and then a line forms down Kendrick. I'm just basing this on what I see every morning. How do you take into consideration something like that?
So it's not as clear in this site plan, but we are proposing a one-way loop, and this will be wide enough to have 2 lanes. So you'll have a left and a right turn coming out of that drive.
Okay.
And again, operationally, however the campus decides that they're going to allow vehicles to, turn one way or both ways. But our strategy as far as getting cars off the road and trying to improve traffic as much as possible, this is definitely a choke point, being a residential street. Totally understood and having that wider exit lane that allows both directions really helps with that.
It's like Chick-fil-A, you're supposed to go right,
Right.
but no one goes
Don't even
right.
slow down, they just hand you the bag.
This has a lot of stack space, so when you're coming in off of that Kendrick and you're going all the way around that loop, it's big. So it's not like Tennyson, it's much more, it's just a lot more, it's more like Chick-fil-A, but even better, I think, even better. So there's a lot of stack space here to get cars off of the road, which was the goal.
The current Kendrick has, it has I would hesitate to call it a parking lot.
Yeah.
Parking lot.
Oh, in the new design, yes, that's correct. So the existing Kendrick is up here on the north part of the site. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Gloria. It looks like from looking at the survey initially, we're going to be able to maintain the series of the majority of them, I think, are live oaks. Actually up here along Kendrick Lane. So by setting that building back a little bit, we're able to save, there's some really nice trees out there. So we're excited about that.
That's great. Yes.
You guys are meeting with for input. I would just ask that at some point we include parents and the community in that committee. I think that would be very vital, especially seeing how some of our other designs have kind of went through the process. I think bringing the parents and the community in kind of in these initial planning conversations, the more we could do that, the better it'll be.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that. We did have the opportunity in the winter of last year in December to attend the holiday events for both campuses, and we actually set up at each one of those. We had a board, and then we left QR codes in their front offices where parents are able to scan, and it offers them a survey where we've actually, I think it was 50 or 60 responses that we've gotten so far.
Sure.
So it's been really cool to get that feedback, but absolutely we can continue that as we go through design.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know y'all don't remember me at South Waco because I was dressed as Santa Claus.
I was going to say, you did a great job.
But I remember you guys being there. And I think that's great. But I would want them to be at the table where we're having these planning sessions with the teachers, with the principals. I think the surveys are great, but I think having them in the room when this design is being discussed would be helpful as well.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Are you going to South Waco?
South Waco, here we come.
So a little bit more complicated site. So the South Waco property actually contains the baseball fields over to the Plan West as well. And so what you'll see in our proposal here, and I'll point to the screen if you'd like to look, but what you'll see in this proposal here is we are planning to extend that parent loop parallel to Gurley all the way across the front of the school. And so again, this is a strategy to bring traffic off of the street, give it a little bit more safe condition for pickup and drop off, and offer that opportunity for them to stack and be able to exit safely. We are expanding this parking lot a little bit as well to increase the parking count. We know parking and storage are some of the, basically the two things that we always hear about. So making sure we address that. You'll see in the brown color is the existing South Waco footprint, and then these white boxes are the planned additions. And so here at the front right corner is the planned administration wing addition. This larger bar on the left represents the planned classroom and library expansion, and then the smaller box here at the bottom right represents the planned gymnasium addition. Again, similar strategy to fence off this back portion of the site so that we have a secure area on the exterior for playgrounds, blacktop, having an open field area, and then we are going to look at strategically developing some courtyard space between the new additions to allow for some of that outdoor learning to occur in an enclosed environment.
Okay, hold on one. Mr. Ochoa. No, it's great.
Oh, on the plan?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is overlaid with a contour map. So you're seeing a little bit of that topography show through.
Whoa, okay.
Correct. This is our proposed location for the detention pond. Actually works super well on both campuses. It's at the low point. Thankfully, we don't have to build. Not a water feature. It will be a dry pond unless it rains really hard.
Can you, could you or Gloria speak to the ball fields that are in the drawing and the construction, parking, and lay down area, so we're all straight on that.
Since we will be building on this occupied site, and as you can tell, if you look at the school proper, there's not much room. And I discovered that we own that property next door, but another community group is using it for some baseball fields. So we're proposing that during construction, we utilize part of that property for the construction parking, lay-down area, et cetera. And if you would scroll back a little bit so we can see the drive. The other thing is we're putting that drive in across the front of those fields, which I think is going to make them happy because they can now park. They would have a place to park when they're at the fields. It's off Gurley Lane. So they're going to be able to benefit from that as well. And then once we're finished with construction, we'll restore the field to whatever it needs to be. So we'll make it back the way, return it to its usable condition. It's either one or two, and I can't remember. I'd have to look at the
Mr.
over.
Vidania would know.
Here, it looks like you're taking out two. So this little field is not really a field. It looks like a little t-ball field that they made, and then this is the baseball field. So you're taking out the smaller baseball field and the softball field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're.
Well, it's land we own, and it's right next to us, so that's like the most efficient and effective way to do it. Now, I realize that has a community impact, which is why we haven't talked to anybody about this, because we wanted to come to you first so you're aware of it before we start talking about it. But, we'd have to work through the impact to the community. But in the long run, they're going to end up with a better situation.
So we're not planning to move the students out of South Waco Elementary like we are at Kendrick. So we're trying to work around the facility that we have while we keep the school operational.
I think it would be important, I know to me and I know the community as well, because I think the partnership with Waco ISD, me and Mr. Vidania talk about it in Southern, has been going on since like the 80s. So this has been like a long-standing partnership. So I understand we own the land, but I would want to make sure that we're working with them so that they can come up with a plan on what they would do during this time. I'm not a fan of just kind of bogarting and saying, hey, we own this land, so we're going to use it. I want to make sure that that's what's best for the community who's been utilizing this land and making great use of it. I actually think we could be doing more to maintain that space already. So I'm a little worried to kind of hear about this. We're getting community input, and I would want to hear what community input are we getting on this.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Vidania, yes, please. Oh, sorry, that was a
So
question.
what community input are we getting?
Community input are we getting from Southern or the community, or who are we
We've had some
consulting?
preliminary conversations with Coach Love about it, but frankly didn't want to go out into the community with it until the board is aware of it, because the last thing I want is for you guys to say to me, hey, Gloria, what are you doing out there? We don't know anything about this. And for my boss to say the same thing to me. So it needs to be discussed with you before we go out into the community.
So what's included in the construction, parking, and lay-down area, and why would that be significant to have it there versus somewhere else? Could you speak to that?
Well,
Doug probably could, perhaps.
it will be all of the materials that are delivered for the project. This will not be a tilt wall project, so we won't have that situation. But steel, brick, soils, you name it. I mean, there's really, we're going to try not to impact the existing campus as much as possible. We need to be off the campus to do this. And this gives us a much better way to do it. It's already going to be tight, even using this land next door.
On using this space, and what impact would that have on the Little League fields there?
Good evening.
So my assistant AD has already reached out to them and let them know that we're going to be using that area for a while, and they were okay with it.
Okay.
As long as they know we're going to make them a nicer field.
Okay.
It's good.
And that's our plan. When we get done, we're going to make sure they get a nicer field than what.
I told them that. I hope we do it.
Yeah, I hope so too. I'm gonna need a little bit more than a hope, though, guys. I know it was good, but I want to make sure that if we're going to cut off this field from use, and we're telling them, hey, when we get done, it'll be better than when you left it. I want to make sure we're sticking to what we're agreeing to the community. I don't want that to be a happenstance. I want that to be a for sure thing, because I think this is important, especially when we're losing these outlets right and left in our community. This is very important. So I want to make sure we do right by South Waco and Southern Little League.
Mr. Vidania, did you have something to say?
We've already moved them from where they were by the old University High School, and I mean, we're not even there, but we got, I'm not gonna say we kicked them out, but we moved them from there. And I don't remember when they moved them to here, but it looks like we just threw them over here because the fields were never done correctly, not maintained correctly. I mean, like the way it rained yesterday, they'll probably miss a whole 2 weeks of practice. I mean, a light rain will cost them 1 or 2 days. And so that's just my concern, is we've already asked them to move once when they were by university, and now I'm just worried that with the new Lake Airfields, how many people are gonna go from Southern to Lake Air and just say, hey, we're done with Southern, because, we were over here by university, y'all moved us, now we're over here, and we're pretty much one field, because this is a little T-ball field. I mean, probably the size of that little area you're in.
Baseball, softball season that we would be shutting this down?
January 1, 2024.
Okay.
Hopefully finishing about January 1, 2025.
Whole season, okay.
Is there, I guess this is for maybe Doug. Will this retaining pond, will this help with some of the drainage on these fields in this area?
So the pond is for the improvements that we're doing for the campus, for the school campus. As far as the water flow impacted from the new construction, yes, it will improve that. But we are not planning, other than the reconstruction of the fields that we just talked about, we're not planning improvements on other portions of the site where there's no work. Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes sense. I was just wondering, since we have that pond, if it would kind of impact kind of these fields, because that has been one of the things that I've heard is the fields kind of flood out. They can't use them. There's just kind of sloppy mess. I think, so thank you for bringing this to us. And I do think that we probably do need to talk with people from Southern and make sure that we have something for them.
Well, I wonder if there's an opportunity for them to use some of our other fields if the timing doesn't overlap. We may be able to do some scheduling to help out, but we can explore that at the stadium, yeah.
That's awesome.
These things concretely laid out. The impact on the city would be huge. Like Trustee Vidania said, that could end Southern Little League because they would leave, right? Because Lake Air is getting new fields. Eastern is struggling because of similar issues as far as the layout. So this will impact our city in a major way. So I would want these things concretely laid out as to where they would be going. So if that's at the stadium, let's write up the agreement or whatever we need to do so we can make sure that the impact is lessened on the community.
Good, yeah. Yes, Mr.
And moved, but is that City of Waco property and our Little League fields generally Parks and Recreation's budget responsibilities? That would be my question is, we need to be advocates then for Southern Little League to do something better about their fields if they borrow our space, but it's not technically our ownership, so that maybe we can work together in this to improve what we're not going to touch, but then restore what we will touch, so that the whole thing by the end feels like it was worth the wait kind of thing.
I think, that's a great point, Trustee Grant. I think this is another opportunity to work with the city, to work closely with our community, specifically Southern, to make sure that we get these kids the best facilities that we can if we're going to disrupt them. It's a great time to collaborate. And yes,
next joint meeting with the city. I've been requesting this for a while. I have went to the Park and Recs. I'm on the advisory board for the city for the Park and Recs, and we haven't, at the time when Kyle was still here, we didn't know exactly what the agreement was between Waco ISD
Yep.
and the city of Waco.
It's-
So maybe this is a golden opportunity for us to shore up what that agreement is. But ultimately, I think it's our responsibility to make sure we're making the best decision for the overall community. And that's what's most important to me, that our kids can play baseball or softball in their neighborhoods where they're used to in a safe environment.
Yeah. Jared,
So
did you
I
have
was
something?
just going to offer again, a reminder, this is schematic design, so we're just starting to explore the ideas out there. So this is about the ideas and the strategies that we want to implement. So to Mr. Davis's point, there will be lots of drawings that describe everything that go into this to a very specific detail, so it can be built. So this is just the start of the conversation of how we would approach construction on the site, and the conversation will continue with the city, with the Little League group, and then as well with Waco ISD to get to an end result. So it's about approach. It's how do we make it workable from a construction aspect, and that's what we're starting with. But there are all these other implications that we have to go through and discuss as we move forward. So point well taken.
Thank you, Jared. Yeah, let's, can we keep moving forward, and then we'll continue to have discussion. Thank you, Mr. Davis and everyone, Mr. Grant, Mr. Vidania, everyone who has contributed. This is a good, robust discussion to make sure we don't accidentally leave anyone out. So, yes. Andrew, what were the other names?
Chris,
Doug, Chris, yes. Doug,
I'll respond to
I
all of them.
remembered
It's all
your
right.
name. I just wanted to, sorry, keep going.
So I'll quickly go through again the floor plan updates. The dark blue again represents your core curriculum, so pre-K through 5. And working from the left side of the plan, the left bar is the new addition. So that contains 2 grade levels, your library and makerspace, and then as well, this campus has P-TECH. And so we, through discussions with the
Future Educators Academy.
and so through discussions with the campus and with the staff and the students and that program, it's really, they're there pretty much throughout the day. And they really need their own dedicated space. And so we're working that into the program and getting them their own classrooms there. And then you'll see that middle bar, again, is another core curriculum with 3 grade levels. And then the bar on the right, again, more interior renovations for some grade levels as well as special education. And then in that skinnier portion that says art and music, that's actually where the existing admin is right now. So if you're familiar with that campus, you walk through right in between the 2 bathrooms, and you actually go into the campus before you get into that front check-in portion. So it's kind of an awkward sequence to get into the building. We're actually proposing, up at the top of the image, you'll see a gold arrow here, and that's actually the proposed new entry. So we're bringing that entry up so that as people park and they're coming into the building, there is administration there at the front, and they can see people and they can check people in through a secure entry vestibule. So that red at the top right corner represents your new admin wing. And then the gold below it, that's your existing kitchen and the cafeteria. We are going to expand that cafeteria and rebuild the platform. If you've been there, that platform's about this tall. It's way too tall for an elementary school, so we're going to bring that down, make it a little bit more accessible and usable. And then there at the bottom, the new addition for the gym. So that's going to be a brand new gym. It's not going to have the acoustical ceiling tile in it. It's going to be a normal gym height. It's going to have the floor markings and everything with the right floor surface that the campus needs.
It's going to be a real gym.
be a real gym.
I had a text message that said, "Thank goodness South Waco will finally have a gym."
Any questions on the floor plan?
Any questions? Yes, besides Eddie.
It was like, oh, the little bitty kids are here, and then you move to this side of the building. It doesn't seem quite as clearly delineated on this.
So I'll say 1st through 5th are going to be on the bottom 2/3 of that plan. So if you see in the new edition, we've identified 1st, 2nd, the middle has 3rd, 4th, and the right is on the 5th. So it all kind of comes down to a square footage requirement that we're hitting with the program. So 1st grade classrooms actually have a slightly larger square footage than your 4th grade classroom. So by putting 1st grade in the new edition, we can hit those target square footages, and then we can use the existing classrooms to hit the square footages for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Pre-K and kinder at the top, you'll see those are 6 classrooms because we have 6 of each. Right now, there's actually 8 classrooms in that part of the building. So we're demolishing those classroom walls out, and we're going to make those rooms bigger, and we're going to give them brand new restrooms. So the intent there is to make sure all of the different grade levels have the square footage that's appropriate for the program. Does that make sense? Yep. Yeah.
It's just way too tall.
It's up there.
And it's
No, I gotta stand on it, and it's like,
yeah, if you're scared of heights, you can't go up there. So.
All right.
Any other, yes, Mr. Ochoa?
Any of the, in their curriculum, are they observing other classrooms? Are they working with students at that point?
Yes,
And
so
grade levels?
yes, and they will be even more so as they go through the system. So we're placing them there as ninth graders, and they're taking high school courses and doing some projects with the elementary students, but as they advance, they'll have more educational courses that will push them into the classrooms as more part of their curriculum through the dual credit courses with MCC.
Okay. I didn't know if we were putting them there because they would mainly be observing in second grade or?
Oh, no, thank you for that. I'm sorry, I'm with you now. No, we put them there so they would have access
To the outside.
to the door because they're coming and going from the high school. So they can have their own entry point. They'll have an administrator there, and they have their own entry point.
Yeah, thanks.
Just makes it easier. Keep up with them.
And then the last slide here is just that image to show the proposed new entry. Again, we're still working through some of the details, as Jared mentioned. This is our schematic design, so we'll continue to refine this. We've gotten a little bit of feedback from the PEC as well, so we're going to make a few tweaks. I think just with some of the architecture, they really like that canopy, providing some covered drop-off area and things like that. So this will continue to evolve through design development, but just a direction of where we're headed. And then I do want to just take a minute to put the schedule up here. So as I mentioned, they're both starting construction generally around the same time, but their completion dates are a little bit offset. So you'll see we're going to be wrapping up design here towards the end of September this year, which would put that notice to proceed right around the December timeframe. So with Christmas break and everything, we would look to start construction January 2024 for both campuses. So that'll start with the demolition of the existing Kendrick in January, and that would start the construction of the additions in January for South Waco. We're anticipating Kendrick somewhere in that 14 to 16 month time frame, and we're anticipating South Waco about a 12-month construction for the new additions, summer renovation work for the interior existing building, and then potentially some summer 25 renovations as needed for that scope as we continue to refine it. All good?
Any other questions? I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for all the hard work you guys are doing on this, and look forward to seeing these beautiful buildings. We'll move on to review and discuss budget update. Cheryl Davis.
Okay, I'm going to kind of go out of order here because I reordered these slides, I don't know, probably 5 times. I still don't like the order of them, so I'm going to change it up a little bit here. We're going to talk a little bit about where we ended, very briefly about where we ended up last year. The auditors kind of covered some of it, but I want to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to look at where it looks like at this point in time we're going to end this year. These are still kind of early estimates, but we'll talk about that. And then again, we'll talk in a little bit more detail on some of the legislation and where that, how that might impact our financial picture. So, oh no, I'm not going to have to go out of order. I did move this one back. Anyway, so here we are. This is kind of this first column there, the audited actuals, where we ended up last year. Kind of in the middle of the page there, you see that we ended up with revenues and other resources over our expenditures and other uses of $1.7 million. The budget we adopted was looking like we were going to draw down the fund balance by about $1 million. So we ended up about $2.7 million better than what we had adopted in the original budget. That's to say, though, we actually did amend in quite a bit of projects that were continuing from the prior year and all, and still ended up in a positive position. Now, we'll look a little bit at why our revenues kind of ended up better because of the hold harmless that the state gave us. Then in the next three columns, you'll see the 22-23 school year. Our original budget, we did adopt a budget that looked like it was going to be about $3.4 million in the hole. We have amended in quite a few, again, projects. You'll see a couple of amendments. We're on tonight's board agenda that I actually am reducing some revenues and expenditures here because and I'll talk about those briefly. But right now, it looks like we're going to end up right about what we adopted, which is kind of unusual. We do have a lot of under expenditures in this budget. We are also short on some revenues. So we kind of talked about that with our ADA being down. But what you saw in tonight, I'm going to talk about those amendments. There's two amendments. One amended down both revenues and expenditures for some E-rate projects. We thought we were going to have a match in the general fund for E-rate projects, and we'd get revenue for that, matching revenue. We instead did that through ESSER funds, so I don't need that in the budget. I'm taking that back out. And then if you'll recall, a few months ago, we had applied for the safety grant, and that was $658,000. We put money into the budget, into the general fund, so we could start some of those projects in case there was delays. We did have a prior award opportunity to spend those funds. We ended up getting our grant in early and had our notice of award, so we didn't need to use general fund money for that. So I'm taking that back out. It does help us with our school first as we end up the year, and it looks like our budget's closer to our expenditures. Anyway, so it looks like right now, as I said, we're going to draw down the fund balance about $3.4 million. That will give us an ending fund balance of about almost $52 million and an unassigned fund balance of $46.9 million. Now, if you'll look at the prior year, we had a larger ending fund balance of $55 million, but our unassigned fund balance was only $45.7 because there were projects such as the remaining Paul Tyson and I know I'm going to say the cooler freezer project again. Some of those were still outstanding. So I think we'll end up with a little bit better unassigned fund balance. So this is kind of what our unassigned fund balance looks like as a percentage of budget. Even though we're going to be drawing this down, we're still in really good position. I always have to go back to that year when we were almost broke. Just because it's just, we did it, that year they moved the budget in early and spent it twice. And so we almost ran out of fund balance completely. So I always want to show that one little thing and how we've progressed since then. But we're still going to be at about a 26.6% projected unassigned fund balance. And that's, our board policy requires us to be at 20%. And so we're in still good shape right there. So let's talk about this a little bit because it looks like when you're looking at that between the 2 years, you see those revenues and expenditures are way down from what they've been. And they're not real, they're not real operating expenditures for the most part. When we went up in that first circle that you see between 2018-19 and 19-20, that's when House Bill 3 was implemented, and we had a lot of increases in revenues there, required salary increases there. We had COVID-19 expenditures that summer, and we had a lot of technology. We had about $3 or $4 million worth of technology purchases we did that summer, getting ready for remote instruction. So our expenditures were up a lot that year. Then they've been flat the last 2 years. Now they're showing coming down for this current year. But most of that is, again, the one-time expenditures for completing Paul Tyson was in that prior year, not going to show up in this year. And the other big, huge thing in both revenues and expenditures is the expiration of the TIF. That was almost $7 million. $6.9 million that was showing in our revenue and in the expenditure side, because it's a pass-through from, they collect the taxes and we just pass it on to the city. So that's the most of why that is coming down. And again, it doesn't really impact our basic district operations. This is our tax collections. They were up again. They went down a little bit during COVID, but they are back up to prior levels. You can see this is our collection percentage. The high year was in 2017-18. We collected 104% because of delinquent collections, 104% of our levy. This past year, it was back up to 102%. The year before that, it had dropped down below 100%. That was the first time in a very long time we've been that low. And then the next chart shows those total tax collections and adjustments as a percent of the current levy. This is our administrative cost ratio, and it is up this year. And there's a number of reasons for that. Part of the increase, what you have with the administrative cost is we have school or district leadership, not the campus leadership isn't included there, but our general administration in payroll, human resources, those categories in this building, and then our instructional leadership is included here. The biggest increases in the numerator actually are in the transformation zone, because they had a number of positions that were moved out of other funding sources into their piece of the general fund, and so they've had increase there. Then the other thing that drives this factor is the denominator, which is made up of instruction, libraries, staff development, curriculum staff development, and guidance and counseling. We moved $1 million worth of dyslexia salaries into ESSER funds to help spend those funds, and then we created all the librarian positions and did the library expenditures also out of ESSER funds. So Function 12 and Function 11 both went down in the denominator. So it drove that percentage of administrative costs up. Again, that's just an estimate of what it will be at this time. I expect next year, after we start bringing some of those dyslexia salaries back into the general fund and do some of that, that will go back down again. So this is talking now about our enrollment and our average daily attendance. You can kind of see where this has been. We are losing kids, as I said. We've lost about 1,000 kids over the last 3 years. That's in that trend over the 10 years. We've lost 7.2% of our enrollment, and we've lost 11.6% in ADA. So that's very significant, since we're have been funded on ADA, and we'll continue, I think, with this. The legislation for next year, our regular program will be still funded with ADA. But you can see that between 21-22 is where it was lowest. It has come back up some. Again, this is just through our 4th 6 weeks. Looks like it's going to be right at 12,000 students for this year. So we talked a little bit about the hold harmless, and this chart shows what the state has given us, how they have held us harmless over the last 3 years when we didn't have kids attending school. You look at that first year, 2019-20, because we ended school in March, we actually generated $32.5 million from the state in hold harmless funds. We would have just earned on our ADA $40.6 million. and we collected 62.7 or 62.6 million in property taxes. In the following year, in 2021, again, they held us harmless in the first semester. And so we generated through that hold harmless 6.8 million. We would have generated on our ADA 66.5 million, and again, taxes of 66.8 million. Last year, we still had some hold harmless in place. That generated 5 million, while we generated 60 million from our ADA, and then you see the tax revenue up there. This year, we get no hold harmless. And that's why we're losing as much revenue as we are, because we lost that $5 million that we got from the state last year in the hold harmless. Now, even though our ADA is up somewhat, we're still not going to see the total revenues that we have in the past. Now, because our property values went up so much, we're going to pick up a lot of property tax revenue, because with the way our state funding formulas work, when property values go up and your tax collections go up, your state revenue goes down. And so you basically, there's an advantage to it as we go through if we don't know quite what our ending certified values are going to be, because as I estimate what the state revenue is and what the property tax revenue is going to be, even if we're off a little bit, in total they're going to be the same. They're going to actually end up coming out to that same number, just it'll be a little bit different between the sources of revenue. But you can see we've gone down from getting about 60 million last year to 54.4 million in the current year in state revenue. Now this is where we're I'm starting to project where it looks like we're going to be for next year, based and as I said, both my numbers and the demographers are showing that we're coming out fairly close. This year we had 13,823 students. The demographer had thought we were going to have 14,118, and I thought 14,001. We were both high, a little high on that. Going into next year, the demographer's projecting for 13,828, and I'm projecting 13,776 in enrollment. And then in average daily attendance, I'm projecting it to be a little bit better based on what's happened this year, but right at the 12,000 that we are currently doing. Now we will continue to refine those projections as we go through the next 6 weeks, or like I said, we just ended the 5th 6 weeks and working on those numbers, and as we end the 6th 6 weeks, we'll be refining those projections. But this, where we I have kind of decided, I think my numbers short-term are better than the demographers, long-term his are better. And when we're increasing, he's better, because I think I'm too conservative. And when we're decreasing, I'm better. Anyway, so this kind of shows you what I'm looking at based on the templates that we use and going into the next 5 years. That will be not too much of a decrease in the next few years, and then starting in 25, 26, we'll see a little bit bigger drop there. Yes.
Every year we'll be losing the amount of kids in the district, and they'll attend school less.
Yes, at this point in time, yes.
Okay.
Now, I mean, that's going to be the case in both my model and the demographer's model, because your pattern that you're basing those projections on is a loss right now. And it's showing it going down every year. So that is going to continue for a while. And we don't really have a lot of base in Waco right now for new construction, new enrollments. And what new construction we do have is not really bringing in school-age children. Now, there is a development over in East Waco that is supposed to bring in about 240 homes. individuals. I'm not sure how many of them will be school-age children, but there is a development that's going in over there. We might have some increase from the charter school closing, and then there's been some interest, if you will, with some of the districts going to the 4-day school week, that it's difficult for parents. It's difficult for, maybe not necessarily good for kids to be out that day. So we've got some interest, I think, in families maybe wanting to move their kids over to Waco ISD as well. Now, there is a bill in the legislature that's going to prevent that schools from doing a 4-day work week, so that may be a moot point, but we do have some interest from other enrollments that we haven't had in the past.
Is this normal, or is this something we're seeing due to the pandemic? Like, is it normal for our enrollment and ADA to decrease at a steady rate over the next couple? Like, is that a normal projection, or?
I have numbers that I've been tracking. Well, I've been tracking it since 2004, but I've got numbers back to about 95, 96 that I've been tracking, and it has been a steady decline. Now, for a long time, it seemed like we would decline for 3 years and go up in a 4th year. And it just kind of had that pattern over and over again. But this is the first time we have really declined this many years in a row and in this large a number.
And I think that's true across the state as well. And that's one of the reasons for the push for enrollment versus ADA for that bill, is to help us with some stability and funding, so we know what we're going to get, and attendance has been an issue as well.
Something I seem to swing at all the time, and much of this is driven by new families moving to town and making a selection where they're going to buy a home and go to school. And Waco ISD is not a popular word coming out of the Waco Association of Realtors and many of the realtors that are in that realm. When you move to town, you say, where would you like to live? And many realtors are accustomed to saying, don't go to Waco ISD. It's legal to say that, but it's very common at the same time. And so we have to find an influx of families and children, as well as retain the kids that are in 5th grade, keep them in Waco ISD when they move to middle school, and then obviously curb the dropout rate. There's just a lot of factors, and there are some forces, I would say, that are not helping Waco ISD outside of ourselves, that I would love for us to shed new light on the greatness of this district, to make this a wonderful option for families moving to town.
Ms. Izetti.
Families are moving here, that there are not as many open options for them in Waco ISD, the affordable housing for families. So that's another adding issue, right?
Partially, yeah.
Over the past couple of years, I say we're about 5,000 units short of housing in general, not even affordable housing, just 5,000 units short in the whole city. But I think from our lane as the school board, I just hope we're really looking at retaining our students, because even if we get a win at the legislature for ADA, if the enrollment is steadily decreasing, we'll still find ourselves at the same problem. So I think it's good for all us to take note that retaining our students kind of needs to be a priority, which I know it is, but we just have to put more efforts into making sure our students stay and then they're actually in school while school is happening.
Ms. Davis.
So this is what this enrollment looks like then when we talk about, and we have some other, we do have some local revenues, and interest revenue's been great this year. That's one of the things that's kind of saving us. First time in a very long time. But what I'm focusing on here are those revenues that are sort of connected with that state revenue that's being driven by the ADA. So before you get really alarmed between that 2021-22 and 22-23 and that big, huge loss in revenue, remember the TIF. the $7 million that went away in the TIF. So even though the revenues are down, they're showing them down about 10 million. 7 of that is the TIF. And another, well, not even quite 7, but another chunk of revenue that we lost this year that we were expecting. Mr. Russick and I had a discussion about that because I think we were both kind of on the same page with that, was the payment that we're getting from the county for Paul Tyson. We had been sort of under the impression that was going to be $1 million a year till it got paid off, and then it's really based on how much money they collect in their venue tax over their debt service, which was not very much this past year. So instead of the $1 million, we only got about $300,000. So we'll still eventually get all the money, but it's on a much slower payment schedule, I think, than any of us had actually thought. So this year, it looks like our revenue there is going to be 122.6. Current law, now this is based on current law, not what's happening in the legislature right now. We would, with the numbers we're projecting, would be down to almost another $1 million to 121.9. Not good news when we're already drawing down our fund balance $3.3 million. So this would be a real problem for us. And then again, it kind of, or like I said, very preliminary projections, but that would continue downward for the next few years.
Yes, Mr. Davis.
What impact do you see this having on programming? I guess Waco ISD as a whole over the years will, if the enrollment and attendance decline, will we still have enough revenue to continue the programs and the accommodations that we offer students, or will we lose those over time?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of variables in that. One being, what does the legislature do for us in terms of funding? But obviously, if you're losing enrollment, then you lose. You have to get tighter, right? So you have to make decisions on what you want to fund and what you don't want to fund. You might have to decide if you want to consolidate some more elementary schools and have fewer facilities to operate. You might decide that you can't afford to have certain programs, and so you just have to study it and make decisions as you go. But we're hoping we'll get some help from the Texas legislature.
And you do have one of the things, we are consolidating 2 middle schools this year. I mean, that's probably $1 million worth savings.
Yes, and we'll be taking Alta Vista offline when we open the new Kendrick in South Waco. So those are things that you do to get tighter, and those will help us stay healthier.
And one of the things we do as a district and have done is that every year we do have staffing reviews with the campuses, and we restaff based on the number of kids that we're projecting that they're going to have. I brought up there was an article about the Fort Worth superintendent, when the new superintendent there, and saying that she wanted to do that this year because she didn't want to have to do that every year. And I'm like, but of course you do that every year. That's why you get in that position if you don't do that every year. But we do that, and so
we spent several weeks doing that in preparation for next year, looking at our numbers,
staffing the way we need to for the enrollments that we have. But so we do have some good news coming out of the legislation. It's not a done deal yet, but we're hopeful, as Dr. Kincannon said. Okay, so there was a component in House Bill 3 that the Equity Center actually sort of pushed through, and that is that golden penny yield, because it has never really automatically increased, but they did push through this increase in the golden penny. So in current law, the golden penny yield increases from 98.56 to probably, the best guess is 126.21. Now, state funding is just wonderful because you have to do these calculations and estimates not knowing what these numbers are going to happen. Because this is an early estimate, but it will change based on what the property values are statewide. And we don't know what those property values are statewide yet until probably July, when all the certified values come in. And so this is yeah. New state funding is just really a challenge on trying to calculate some of these. So it's going up this year, it's going up again next year. For this year, that should generate about $4.2 million for us. Helps with what we think we're going down, and also covers what we think what we are estimating right now we have as a deficit. So we should be whole at that point. Doesn't leave money for some things like salary increases, benefit increases, and things like that that we might need to do at this point. So then I've listed some other bills that we kind of talked about today. There's some school safety laws, the education safety counts, but the big one is on the next page, House Bill 100. Those other bills are really important for other people. This one's really important for me, because this is probably going to be the vehicle for school funding. Right now, there is an increase in the basic allotment from $6160 to $6250 in 2024 and $6300 in 2025. The gain for 2024 is estimated to be $1.7 million. But now half of that's going to have to go to salary increases. And I'm not sure if that's what ended up. There was some amendments to the floor there that originally that was just to teachers, nurses, librarians, and counselors only. Didn't include any other employee groups. There was an amendment on the floor that some percentage would go to non-administrative positions as well, paraprofessionals and auxiliary staff. Have not really seen the detail on that as yet. So then the next piece is the piece that's kind of gone back and forth several times. In the original, the bill as it was originally written, increased the small and mid-size allotment, and we were going to pick up about $600,000 because that's how our 1882 campuses that are in the transformation zone, that's where their extra money comes from. It comes from this small. Normally, a district our size would not get any of this money, but that's what funds those in-district charters. So we're going to gain about $600,000. Then they realized, I think they didn't realize it applied to charter schools. They thought they were helping the rural small districts, and they saw the price tag on it. So then they undid it, and we're going to, in the bill that went to the House floor, we were going to then lose $0.7 million. So we had $1.3 million swing there. Then they have now fixed it, because the rural schools all lost it too. They fixed it on the floor of the House, but they did something with charter schools. I can't find the language on it. There's some kind of 600 or 600,000 or something reduction for charter schools. So I don't know where that's going to end up. That will impact the transformation zone and their funding. So the next thing then is a change to the minimum salary schedule. What happens here is we have to pay TRS on our salaries that are above the statutory minimum schedule. When they raise the statutory minimum schedule, we pay less than TRS, and the state makes up that. That is supposed to gain us about $0.3 million or $0.03 million, but half of that has to go to salary increases. And then it adds a sixth golden penny in Tier 2 without tax ratification election. That doesn't apply to us because we're already at 8 cents. And so we don't have to worry about that at this point. There are some changes to enrollment rather than ADA for some of the special programs. That has changed a couple of times too. I think at this point in time, it will apply to our bilingual education, our special education, our early childhood programs. It was originally going to apply to career and technology, but I think that has been undone, and career and technology is going back to some different form of FTEs. And then it's increasing the weights on compensatory education tiers, so we'll gain a little bit of money there. It increases the transportation funding. Transportation funding in no way funds transportation. So, but this is going from $1 a mile to $1.54.
That's a good
And the original bill had special ed at $1.28 per mile, but this one, and special ed is actually more expensive than regular ed. So I think the amendment has taken it to something like 13 cents more than this $1.54. Anyway, so then there's some new allotments, the advanced math pathways, a fine arts allotment, special ed evaluations. I think that's going to generate about $150,000. Anyway, and then there's a teacher textbook safety. Not quite sure what textbook safety is. And then teacher retention. We're going to gain about $0.3 million there. Teacher retention, I told Daniel, I said, this is great. They put in this teacher retention money is $3,000. So I'm not quite sure why it was even worth putting into a bill, but we're going to get about $3,700 for teacher retention.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway, so for the district.
For the district.
For the district.
Have a drawing.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. It's kind of, like I said, I don't know what they were thinking and who puts just, we get a lot of whim type things, I think, put into some of these. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. At this point in time, we are still building the expenditures budgets. I have not increased the allocations to the campuses for their supplies and materials because they still have some ESSER funds available to them for next year. I know we do have some increases that we're looking at. We have blown by substitutes this year, so we're going to have to put some money into subs. Utilities, we've got some increases there, but I don't think it's going to be terrible at this point. But I think other than that, what I'm looking at, we're not going to have a lot of increases in the general fund. What we will be looking at will be some kind of salary increase, and we're looking at group health right now. We're evaluating group health bids so we can figure out how much we're going to have to, or not put into group health for next year. But that's kind of where we do know we have a TRS increase that we'll have to cover as well. But other than that, I think we're looking at the budget being fairly flat. We have, again, cut some positions where we losses in students and didn't have the enrollment to justify a grade level or whatever. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. We're not going to be $3 million in the hole starting out, but it's still going to be a tight budget, I think.
Any questions? Thank you so much, Ms. Davis, for.
We get property values tomorrow.
Yeah.
Our early preliminary estimates, so we'll be coming back probably in May or June. May's an early meeting, probably with some information about our property values.
They're astronomical.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, they're astronomical.
Okay, moving on to item 12, review and discuss report on board member continuing education credit. That is me. As board president, I'm required to announce the name of each member who, as of that member's anniversary or election of appointment to the board, has completed the required continuing education course, has exceeded the required continuing education, and/or is deficient in meeting the required continuing education. I'm also required to announce that completing the required continuing education is a basic obligation and expectation of every sitting board member under the State Board of Education rule. I'm happy to report all Waco ISD board members, Stephanie Cordaway, Jose Vidania, Jeremy Davis, Keith Guillory, Emily Iazetti, Angelo Ochoa, and Jonathan Grant have completed and exceeded the required continuing education. Oh, thank you. I just wanted to take a minute right now before we go into announcements to thank Ms. Iazetti for your service here on the board. I have thoroughly enjoyed getting to work with you. It has been a joy, and you keep me on my toes. I love it. She asks me hard questions, and I'm like, I don't know. We've got to figure that one out. And so I am so thankful for your diligence, your dedication, not only to our students and our families, but our community as a whole. And I'm really going to miss you. So, yeah, I know you didn't want a big to do. So, but yeah, thank you, Ms. Isaac. And now we'll move to announcements.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Kincannon, and Trustee Iazetti. I want to echo all those sentiments in my few months here. It's been such a pleasure to have you and your face up there on the dais whenever I get to speak to y'all at the end of these regular board meetings. So first thing on my list tonight is to remind everyone that early voting started Monday and continues through May 2nd for our local May 6th elections. During early voting, registered voters may vote at any of the 5 early voting sites. And on Election Day, May 6th, registered voters may vote at any of the county's vote centers. More information and location details and times are all on our district website at wacoisd.org/elections. Additionally, related to the election, May 11th, there will be a brief special meeting here for us at noon for us to canvass the election. Those calendar invites have gone out your way. It's a fun time for us here in the district. We've been doing a lot of staff celebrations and recognitions. Thank you to those of you who joined in the past few weeks for our TIAA Prize Patrol and for our Lead from the Heart Awards. Those have been really special. I want to remind everyone to see those photos from those different presentations. Be sure to check out the district's Flickr account. You can get there quickly at wacoisd.org/photos. There's all sorts of great pictures from our communications team there. This week in your email, you should have received some top secret information about an exciting annual tradition we partner with our Waco ISD Educational Foundation on, so be sure you check your email for that. Informal invitations were sent your way by the traditional U.S. Postal Service for our Waco ISD Outstanding Teacher Retiree Luncheon and our Waco ISD Outstanding Teacher event and the Retiree Luncheon on May 23rd and 24th, so make sure you take a look in your mail for those. We've also rescheduled the 8th grade Superintendent Scholars Recognition Ceremony. That wasn't the storm last night, it was the previous week's storm that interrupted that great event, and it was so sweet to hear. I think a lot of our staff heard, and I know Dr. Kincannon heard from teachers about how excited our 8th graders were for that event. So we have secured a new location and a new date. It will be Monday, May 8th at the Lee Lockwood Library. So I really hope you'll be able to join us and celebrate those students. Something else quickly to flag for you as well, related to TASB's annual Summer Leadership Institute. It is scheduled for Fort Worth, June 21st through 24th. And I know that seems far off, but coming up in May are some important housing and registration dates that we want to make sure you're tracking. Ultimately, if you'll just please stay in contact with Monica about your availability, your travel plans, she'll help get you taken care of. But there are several deadlines related to it.
Yeah, I want to mention too, I thought the legislative update was on Wednesday night, but it's actually on Saturday morning. So we've paid for you all to attend that. I think it's pretty early Saturday morning, so we'll still get you out of there by noon, but wanted to correct that.
Be important update, full of information.
There is a deadline to cancel. Did you say that?
The cancellation deadline is related to housing.
Yes.
But it is May 23rd, but there's also some earlier deadlines that Monica has related to just securing that housing and your registration.
Yeah, so if you're not going, please let us know so we don't pay for you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ochoa? Yeah.
On the board too, so I just want to say, Dr. Kincannon, what a pleasure it's been. Should it go that way to work with you and your staff. And win or lose, I'm really excited about seeing what the district looks like going forward.
Yeah, thank you.
And We will go on to item 14, consideration of personnel, 14A, deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline or dismissal, of public officer employee, 14B. And we will go into closed sessions for this item under Texas Government Code, section 551.074 at 8:30. There will be no action taken when we come back, so you're welcome to leave. You don't have to sit around. At 9:19, we will adjourn.